Okay, there we go. And we're live now. What's up, everybody? Hope you're all having a great Friday. I know y'all may be thinking it's not Monday. I normally do my podcast on Monday, but today we got a little bonus episode for y'all. We have a special guest that's going to be joining us on the podcast. We're going to do a little interview style podcast just to get to know the interviewee and kind of what he does. We're going to let him spread his word about his journey and about what he does in the fitness industry. And I think y'all really going to like it. So with that, without further ado, we're gonna go hop in and bring on our guest today. His name is Jason Curtis. We're gonna bring him on. Okay, there we go. Um, I'm gonna let him introduce himself and kind of give his little spiel of whatever he wants to let y'all know. So this time, go ahead, Jason.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. So, yeah, jumping straight in, I'll give a little backstory to who I am. I'm over in the UK, so I live in a small town called Macclesfield, which is close to Manchester. I was an army physical training instructor. So, prior to joining the army, I did a lot of combat sports, boxing, and Muay Thai. Joined the military, so the British Army. Became a physical training instructor in the British Army, where I trained infantry soldiers and also trained recruits ready to join the army and subsequently deploy in operations. Following sort of my career in the army, which I did 6 years, I started my own gym. So I own a strength and conditioning gym in the UK. Alongside that, I set up an academy. So I qualify personal trainers and strength and conditioning coaches internationally. They're internationally approved qualifications. So they do the level 2 in gym instructing, which allows them to work with groups of people, level 3 in personal training, which is the one-on-one qualification, and then the strength and conditioning, which is the specialism in athletic development. And then from there, what I'm actually currently working on is a fitness race that I've designed called the Deadly Dozen, which the idea is to host that on athletics tracks, indoors and outdoor, but predominantly outdoor, across the UK and hopefully eventually internationally. So it's 12 fitness stations followed, in between each, there's a 400-meter run. So it's pretty horrific, to be honest. And alongside all that, what I'm sort of quite well known for within my little niche is I write a lot of books on strength and conditioning and fitness. I've published over 20 books. Um, and really what my sort of USP with that is I make it accessible, so I'm not an academic myself. I joined the military, from school, but I enjoy reading, I enjoy writing. I'm not a particularly great writer, but I feel that I can explain things well. And I think if you're quite a good coach and you do it for long enough, and you enjoy writing, it's easy to put it on paper. And that's what I did. And I think people sort of bought into that. They liked the books that were took complex topics and made them simple, basically. And that's a sort of broad overview of where I'm at currently.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely taking something that's complex and dumbing it down a little bit so more people can understand it. Is definitely more like people enjoy that better because I think I don't know. There's some statistic out there where like the world's reading level is only like a seventh grade level or something crazy like that. I don't know the exact statistic, but yeah, definitely putting it in a way where other people can understand it more definitely helps. To me, I'm not a reader. I'll be honest. I'm not going to read your book. I really won't. But if you make a video, I'll watch your video 100%. I'm a big YouTube guy, so I like watching. I like learning through either audio or visually through video or in person. So that's kind of the way I learn. But yeah, definitely people love books
Yeah,
too. So
I think like the majority of people, it's like me. I'll watch more YouTube than I will read, and I'll
mhm.
I'll definitely learn from doing.
Yeah,
But I just found that a lot of people, the more I started to run the courses, I had a lot of online learning. So my academy, I produced dozens of online courses for strength training, Olympic weightlifting, speed and agility, plyometrics, stuff like that. And actually, the thing that shocked me most, because I like reading, but the thing that shocked me most is about how many of the students that didn't see themselves as readers, when you give them the physical manual, they said they learned best from that. So even though they were watching the content, when they actually delved into the content that was written, it was in front of them rather than on the screen. They actually said that they felt like they got a much deeper understanding. And I think it was concurrent. So a lot of the time people will say, oh, I'm a kinesthetic learner, which means you learn from doing. But really the truth is that, yeah, everyone learns from doing stuff. That's quite obvious. But
hmm
what what really works is multimedia. So if you watch a video and then you try something, then you read a little bit more about the detail. So sometimes what I find with people is sometimes if you only watch video, for example, you can sort of scratch the surface. So there's a lot of people in this industry, or a lot of people that train, they get that sort of Dunning-Kruger effect where they think they're experts, but actually it's not until they read a book on a certain topic where they go, oh wow, like there's a lot more to learn about this. And
Hmm.
that's what I found with reading is that some of the textbooks were too, they're quite hard reads. So I was wanting to create textbooks that were like easy reads, lots of
Hmm.
images, and they covered the topics in far more depth. Like even though in a lot of my videos I can get a lot out there, sometimes I can't get as much as I can in the writing. But I see it as a supplement to everything else. So you've got the book side, you've got the video side, and then you've also got the practical side in the gym. Um, but yeah, I don't think I was surprised how many people read the books, to be honest, because you sort of see it as a dead thing in some respects. And also, I was surprised how many people preferred the paperbacks. So we sell the ebooks, but people
Hmm.
still like, having a book, and they say that they absorb the information better. But like I say, it's each to their own. To be honest, YouTube's probably the strongest tool there is nowadays for educating yourself, in all honesty. Probably better than university.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes too with like the different generations. So I think your older generation is going to be the people that want to buy the books. They want to put their hands
Yeah,
on it, have the physical copy, and then you have your younger generation now that like the YouTube. They'd rather just look it up. It's so
yeah,
accessible, and you have all the information at your fingertips on the internet. So I think that comes with it too as well. I just think online is definitely going to get bigger and bigger. That's why you see
yeah,
all the personal trainers are going online nowadays. And
yeah. Yeah,
go
so
ahead.
I think what I did with my Instagram was basically I did a lot of video content, but I actually found where I found my niche on Instagram, which became quite popular. So we developed over 100,000 followers, um, and it was because I was looking at all the videos and I was like, you know what, this guy's doing like epic videos, like really high production value, really good coaches, and I was like, am I really going to compete with that? And I was like, right, so what do I do fairly well? Is I create a lot of I write a lot. So I was like, if I can put these into PDFs, so I was just writing. So I'd pick a topic like, right, squats, barbell squats, and I'd do a sort of PowerPoint presentation on squats. So it would be like, right, back squat, front squat, Zercher squat, Anderson squat, um, SSB squat, squatting with a cambered bar, and it would have a picture and then a write up on each one, like what's the benefits, for example. And I just screenshot that PowerPoint and just throw it onto Instagram. And the first one I ever did actually was a 12-week program, and it was a 12-week program, and I just screenshotted it, so it was like a PDF, so you could barely read the text. And I just put follow and comment below to download a free copy of this PDF, right? And I saved it as a PDF, grabbed the Dropbox link, and the plan was to send the Dropbox link to everyone. And I thought I'd get like 2 or 3, and I got 600.
Oh wow.
600 people commented. So I was like, all right, I'm onto something here. I'll do another one. So I did another program, same again, 400 people. Then I did another one, and then basically my Instagram now is just PDFs, and the whole thing now I've automated it. The whole thing is literally just PDFs. So
Hmm.
they're ebooks, and my following within 4 months went from I think like 4,000 to over 100,000.
Oh wow.
Um, and then it did seem to stagnate a little bit. It's sort of leveled off, but we're growing. Um, but yeah, it was amazing the growth, and I think it was just because I found a niche which was very much like text based. But because there's that many reels, there's that many much good content. I sort of found something that was a little bit of a niche, and I think it was a step up from you have people that absorb in content that's like, right, I'm a fitness beginner, or maybe they're in the middle grounds, and there's the ones that are like the sort of, in some ways, a step up where they're like, okay, I've seen videos on squats. I want to now start understanding more about the anatomy, and which can be done in video form, or I want to understand more about, in a different way, basically. And I think the written content worked for that. It just filled a niche that is definitely smaller than video, but it's a niche that's there. Someone said to me that your niche might be tiny, but it still could be millions of people. There's 8 billion people on
Hmm.
the earth, so that was it basically.
Oh yeah, finding your niche is definitely the key. There's so many like little different niches in there that you would never think of, and it just comes with time, just putting out as much content as possible until you find something that works, and then once it
Mm.
works, you kind of just stick with that.
Yeah, exactly. They often say like niche, and then find your niche, and then niche it down even further. You
Hmm.
know, and it definitely works if you get known for that, for your little micro niche as they call it, and then you sort of develop on top of that, and obviously you're working with other people. But I definitely found my niche was written content, but dumbed down. So written for the layman, but taking quite complex things like like plyometrics, speed and agility, but also strength training, um, and also not being sort of the algorithms really like when someone's a contrarian, so you go against the grain or when someone is controversial. But I just wanted to be like, sometimes I think people are being a bit knobbish, like they're being knobheads, sometimes they're trying to be like the heroes and, putting other people down. But I just thought, you know what, I just want my content to be like, yeah, you can do it this way, you can also do it this way. The both of these
Hmm.
methods work, which one's right for you? And it was very sort of a common sense approach, very laid back, like not saying this is better, that's terrible, that's shit. It's just going, yeah, that's one way to squat. Here's another way. Here's one way to get fit. Here's another way. And I think people appreciate that because a lot of people try to be, quite controversial or even confrontational because it gets views. And I
Hmm.
couldn't be bothered with that.
Yeah, I definitely always say there's two sides to every story. Like people are going to preach what works for them, and normally what works for them is not going to work for somebody else. So
Mm,
then you have those two people disagreeing with each other, and one's gonna be like, "You're right and you're wrong." But I've always said, try both for yourself and just figure out what works for you and
mm,
stick to that one because everybody's going to say what works for them. I
yeah,
always say it's like one of the main examples I use is like the keto diet. Some people love the keto diet, but then some people are completely against it. So it's like, what's right and what's wrong? How do you know what works and what don't? So I've always say you just got to try it out yourself and see if it works for you. And if it don't, then hey, don't do it. Try something else. You don't have to do it one way. There's no like in fitness. There's no one way to do anything really. There's always multiple ways to do it. So you just got to try it out yourself because everybody's different.
no, exactly. And nutrition. I mean, I don't really do the nutritional side because I find it's a
Hmm.
nightmare. It's not an area that particularly interests me. And they say, don't they, if you were to follow everything, all the fitness influencers, well, nutrition influencers preach, you wouldn't be able to eat anything. Because
Mm-mm.
there's some are literally saying don't eat meat, and some of them literally saying don't eat vegetables. And then someone else is saying don't eat carbs. And they're not just saying don't eat them, they're saying like these are toxic and they're going to give you cancer. And it's like, and it's literally every part of the diet. At least with physical training, someone might say, "Oh, I prefer the kettlebell," and someone might say, "Well, the barbell's a more effective tool." It's like, yeah, but which one do they enjoy more? And
Yeah.
yeah, that it's you can build muscle a million ways, but when it comes to nutrition, it just I really can't be bothered with that side of it. I eat a fairly sort of what people would say a clean diet, but that's solely because I find it easy. It's like chicken and rice and fish and rice, and
Yeah.
I just find it easier. I'm in the gym all the time. It's easier to have pots of rice and chicken, and I actually buy cooked chicken, um, and just chop it up and I have it with rice and like sweet chili sauce. And it's not because I'm crazy disciplined when it comes to nutrition. It's because I'm probably lazy when it comes to cooking. Um, and
Yeah.
I find it works for me. But I find the key to nutrition is to train really, really hard. Because I think when you train really, really hard, you then sort of look at the sort of things that might affect your hard physical training and it becomes more, not necessarily repulsive, but some things are to me now. Because I train so hard, I do a lot of fitness racing, not CrossFit, like what I call conventional fitness racing, like running, rowing, running, farmers carry, sled pushes, stuff like that, like the high rock style of stuff. And what my fitness event's going to be is I train so hard. You know, 3 to 4 of my sessions each week are hard, like high intensity, like long duration, pushing yourself. Um, and that just makes me go, I don't want to have 10 pints of beer,
Mhm.
or I don't want to have, there's nothing wrong with having chocolate bar or having a few drinks. But when I'm absolutely knowing that on Wednesday I'm going to be training hard and on Saturday I'm doing a race sim, like I'm running through the high rocks. Have you heard of the high rocks?
I have not.
It's where you do like a 1K run, 1K ski, 1K run, sled push at 150 or 200 kilo. Then you basically do 8 times 1K runs with fitness events in between.
Mhm.
And it's getting huge. Um, and the last thing I want to have is like, a massive chippy or something. In the UK, it's quite famous, like chippy tea, fish and chips. Battered fish. I don't think you're really eating much in the States. And I don't really feel like having that the night before I then go and run 8Ks as hard as I can. So for me, when people say to me, what's the key to having, a disciplined diet, is train more and train harder. That's my advice, and it motivates you.
Hmm. Yeah, you don't want to ruin all that progress you've been working so hard on. It's
Yeah,
definitely,
well, that's it.
yeah. When you bust your butt in the gym, it definitely affects your diet because you're like, nah, I'm not gonna eat that sweets or whatever that is because I.
Yeah,
Then you got to do a whole other workout. You got to redo
yeah.
it.
And that's what works for me, really. And to be honest, it helped doing a sort of sport like fitness racing as a sport, because when I was into powerlifting and weightlifting, I definitely pushed towards bulking and getting big. So I'm actually 3.5 stone, so 23 kilos lighter than I was 6 months ago, because I sort of spent a long time bulking and powerlifting after sort of spending a long time in combat sports where you're always trying to be lean. I think I developed like a little bit of bigorexia where you just want to be as big as you can be. You want to gain as much muscle. Started powerlifting, started Olympic weightlifting. Um, and then as soon as I started fitness racing, I realized that's what's really for me. Um, and it was that because the sport leans so much towards being lean, because if you have any excess fat, you're not going to be low body fat, nothing like bodybuilding. But if you're carrying like real excess fat, then it's slowing you down. It's weight that's not contractile, and it's not going to help when you're running. So when I was running fast or rowing fast, I was just realizing this excess fat is slowing me down. So that really motivated me to go, right, get rid of that. So that's why I love, the fitness racing, because it's not geared towards, even though I want the muscle, because I want to be able to push the sled easy, I want to be able to move the weights. The stronger you are, the easier things are. Um, I wanted it to be something where I want to be lean as well. I don't want to just do the bulking, because I've got to the age where I've got 3 kids now, and I'm just as conscious of like heart health, even though I'm only in my early 30s. I'm very conscious of like blood pressure, cardiovascular health, because I just think long term that's the real game changer, really, when you look at sort of disease and the reason why men die prematurely.
Yeah, for sure. The cardio is definitely important, which was where I was lacking before. I was kind of like you. I did mainly bodybuilding type workouts, and I wanted to get bigger and put muscle on things like that. But here lately, I mentioned to you earlier, I'm training for an Ironman. So I've lost about 20 pounds myself in the past,
Wow.
like
Yeah.
since January. I've lost 20 pounds, but I've been down this weight for a few months now. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you said. Now that I've shed some of that body fat, I feel lighter. Like I feel better. Like
Yeah.
running is definitely easier now. Like I can go all day
Yeah.
running. And you feel better. My clothes fit way looser. I went down a whole t-shirt size. Like it's bad, but um, yeah. So I noticed you call it like fitness racing. So what is the difference between what you do and CrossFit? Is it kind of similar? Is there what's the difference
Yeah.
there?
So the thing is with me, so I run a strength conditioning gym, but CrossFit is what I call specialist fitness racing. It's the same as OCR. So OCR is obstacle course racing. You've got ninja sport racing, right? So
Hmm.
they're things that I class as having a high technical demand to enter. It's a high barrier to entry, which is the technicality. So CrossFit is very. If you look at what CrossFit is it's competitive fitness, right? So it's
Hmm.
people competing in fitness events, and although they can do anything, so they can go, oh, you're going to run a marathon or you're going to do a triathlon, right? They could say that if they want to, right? That's what they sort of market it as. But fundamentally, the backbone of CrossFit is a selection of exercise that primarily includes Olympic weightlifting and gymnastic type movements like handstands, handstand walking, muscle ups, ring dips, stuff like that. So the Olympic weightlifting and the in particular like the gymnastic movements that they incorporate. Obviously, they've got more standard stuff like burpees and wall balls and stuff like that. Um, they've got a high technical barrier to entry. So you've got to learn to be a weightlifter. Now, obviously, if you have good rowing technique, you're going to row much better. But fundamentally, what I class as conventional fitness racing is racing that hasn't got that barrier. So the primary focus is performance qualities, like how strong, fit, fast are you, rather than, and the emphasis is on like aerobic power. So being able to work fast aerobically, because as soon as you go anaerobic, you're just burning out. Like if you go too far across the threshold, there's weights within it, but it's not a strength emphasis. So you're not getting up well over into the 100 kilos unless it's a sled push. Because That's where you get that barrier where, in CrossFit, they might be doing a clean and jerk of 100 kilos. That's a huge barrier. Whereas with the high
Mm-hmm.
rocks, yeah, they've got heavier sleds, but it's the stations are ski erg, row. You've got sled push, sled pull, which is like 100 in the open weights, 150 and 100 kilo for the pull. Farmers carry, which is 24 kilo in each hand. You've got lunges at 20 kilo sandbag. You've got wall balls, which is 6 kilo. So the primary, anyone can enter it if they're fit enough to do it. It takes people just over an hour. It takes around, fastest in the world, a low end 50 minutes, and the slowest, people are going to be up around 90 minutes towards 2 hours. But if you're getting under an hour and 10, you're fast. So it's a long race, but nothing is high technical, which Olympic lifts are. I'm a weightlifting coach and
Mm-hmm.
they're technical lifts. Gymnastic movements are technical. So you could take the fittest guy in the world. So you take someone that's incredibly strong, but more focus on the sort of cardio side. So they're one of the fittest guys in the world. However, if you were to throw them into CrossFit tomorrow, they wouldn't win because if that had like ring dips or it had like handstand walking, it just you're not going to win. Even if you are like one of what you'd see as the fittest guy in the world, but it has snatches in there and it's like even just an 80 kilo snatch, the likelihood is that they're not going to be proficient enough at it. So that's how I define it as like conventional fitness racing and specialist fitness racing. And
Mm-hmm.
specialist fitness racing is CrossFit, obstacle course racing, stuff like that. Conventional is quite a broad term, but the technical barrier to entry is low. So it might involve a kettlebell deadlift. Yeah, there's some technique to that, but anyone really could run to a kettlebell and deadlift it 50 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so would you say that's pretty big in the UK, like doing those kind of races? I know, like here in the US, CrossFit's really big. Like it's gotten big in the
Yeah,
past few years, but I wouldn't say like conventional racing
yeah.
like you're talking about is.
It's
I wouldn't say
growing
it's
now.
very popular here.
No, but I would. This is my prediction now. So High Rocks now is international, so they're worldwide. They
Hmm.
started in 2017. If they put up a race, say right Manchester in October, they'll get 5,000. It'll get booked out within a few weeks, and they'll get
Oh
five
wow.
thousand competitors. And they're
Okay.
in they're in Europe. It started in Germany. It's one of the fastest growing sports events in the world, like fitness companies in the world. So they've got multiple events, 5,000 people, and book out like that. And they're everywhere. And to me, CrossFit is here to stay. CrossFit's it's awesome. You look at the athletes are
Hmm.
crazy good, right? And as much as people say, oh, it's injury prone, yeah, so is rugby, so is boxing. Like getting hit in the head is not good for you, but boxing is all right. If you're into CrossFit, it's great. I understand why some people take the piss, especially in the earlier days when you see like fail videos. It was a bit daft. But as a whole, these people are, you see the people that are world, the top level of CrossFit, they're absolute monsters.
Hmm.
But I think what their biggest strength is their biggest weakness. So their biggest strength is the side that it's almost like a martial art. When you go to a box, you know exactly what you're getting, and you're not just getting hard physical training. You're also getting something that's like what I think sells a lot of martial arts is you're learning technical skills. So I used to call Olympic weightlifting like the martial art of lifting weights because it's so technical. You've got things like handstand walking, ring dips, and stuff like that, muscle ups, kipping pull ups, and people love that. But there's also a lot of people that like we used to say in weightlifting that Olympic lifting finds the lifter, not the other way around. And some people just don't take to weightlifting, right? It's hard on your wrists, it's incredibly hard on your knees. It's if you haven't got like the genetics, um, your progression, to progress that high level, um, is difficult. When it comes to weightlifting, to lift the real, getting up towards the heavy weights. You see people on Instagram, it's just crazy, but they're outliers. Um, Whereas a conventional fitness race is the barrier to entry is so low in terms of you just got to be fit, right? It's a really hard race, but anyone can do it. And the amount of people that stop playing sport when they become an adult, right? So they're not doing rugby, tennis, cricket, gridiron football in the States, stuff like that. Yeah, they're starting to play less of that. The injury rates in these sports are higher. Now, what's been going up exponentially is gym participation, right? So what was popular recently is like Tough Mudders, and you must have heard of like Spartan
Hmm.
Race,
Yeah.
right? But I think that's some of the OCR guys won't like this, but I think that's sort of seen its peak. And I think it'll last just like CrossFit. But I think CrossFit's almost seen its peak. It might keep going, it might keep growing, but I think there's more of a market for conventional fitness racing
Hmm.
because rather than people going, you know what, it was a novelty. We're going to go run a tough mudder, get electrocuted, go through a load of shit, and crawl through water, and it's great. But now people are training in gyms, they're getting fitter, they're wanting to be healthier for longer. You've got these fitness races that have incredibly low injury risk. They have incredibly low technical barrier to entry. All it is you've got to be fit enough to complete this, and you're not going to get covered in shit. Um, and basically, like you're going to feel great, and it's going to give you a massive goal. And they're incredibly hard, but you can do it in pairs. You can do it as a relay race. There's different races that you can enter. And nowadays, like I think the top prize for Hyrox is like 75 grand. So
Oh
as the
wow.
money drives into it, I mean, Hyrox is £100 to enter, and they're getting 5,000 people to a show, and it's booking out like that. They're another level to everyone. But I think it's going to be huge, and I think in the next 5 years in the states, it's going to be as big as CrossFit.
Yeah.
It's going to be massive.
Yeah, 5,000 people, I would say that's big already. I think
Yeah,
In the Ironman I'm doing, I think there'll be anywhere from like 2 to 3,000. So I mean, it's already bigger than Ironman. Ironman's been around for years, so that says a lot. I haven't heard of any of those races around my area, but hey, hopefully they'll have one
yeah.
soon. I
If
can
you
try it
look up
out.
High Rock, yeah, if you look up High Rocks, you'll probably find this. I know they do them in New York,
Yeah.
um, and I know they've done like New York, Barcelona, um, you know, Germany, obviously, and the UK. I mean, in the UK, they don't just do London; they do Manchester, London, Birmingham, Glasgow. So they've got multiple venues that they do year round. And I imagine in the States they do it. I'm sure they'll do like California, and
Yeah.
I'll have to have a look, but I'm sure they'll do all around the States.
Mhm.
Um,
They
and
probably do in the big cities. I don't live near like a super big city,
yeah,
but I'm pretty close to like Atlanta or like New
yeah,
Orleans. So
I reckon they'll have one in Atlanta.
yeah, probably so.
Um, like I say, I'm going to do a very, very, very quick High Rocks Atlanta. Is that the biggest city close to you?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest one close
USA
to me.
High Rocks, Chicago, LA, Dallas, Melbourne. We're going around the world now. But yeah, USA, Chicago, LA, Dallas is what
Yeah,
it says.
I'm not any close. I'm not close to any of those. That's
No,
pretty
and the
far.
States is a big place. Like if
Yeah.
they all the way, if I go to Scotland or London, for me, it's not that big. You know what I mean? So the country itself is like a state. You
Hmm.
know, so that's the difference, isn't it? But yeah, so High Rocks is huge, but my fitness race is a bit different. I personally think it's the most complete fitness race in the world. Luckily, off my background of writing a textbook on strength training, it was all very geared around the movements, like so hinge, squat, lunge, push, pull, rotate, gait. So I've got free loaded carries, a squat movement, a lunge movement, pressing movements, jumping movements, and then in between you do a 400. And one of the best ways to train to what the inspiration was one of the best ways to train for your 5K, which is a run, is to do 12 times 400. So I was like, okay, that is a horrific warm up workout. I also find that any athlete that I work with that has a good 5K and they're also quite strong, they're usually like a monster. So it's always been a distance that stands out to me. On the trot, the distances that stand out are 400 and 800. Road running 5K just stands out to me because I get like rugby players, and then when they run like a sub 25K, but they're also quite a big guy, I'm just like, you're a monster. And it's the same for like heavyweight boxers I've worked with, where they're like a heavyweight boxer and then they're running like a sub 25K. It's all well and good for like a lean, decent runner. But like when you've got some strong guy that's smashing out a 5K, it's always stood out. So I wanted it to be based around that. And then in between, you sort of run around the track, and then the sort of labours we call them are in the middle. So you do your labour, run around the track. Next one, run around the track. So it's going to be a pretty horrific event, but it only uses plates, kettlebells, and dumbbells. Um, so in terms of equipment, I think it's the most accessible race in the world, and also it's the most accessible training methodology because I believe it's a complete training methodology. It works the entire body and it works different modes of fitness. So obviously cardiovascular system and the strength training and muscular endurance, and it can literally be done in someone's garage, with a
Hmm.
pair of kettlebells. And you don't have to do deadly dozen run, which is the 400 meter runs. You could do deadly dozen row. which is 400-meter rows. Deadly dozen ski, which is skiing in between. Deadly dozen cycle, which is you double the distance. It's an 800-meter cycle, or even deadly dozen swim, which is swimming is normally a 4-to-1 run to swim ratio, so it'd be like a 100-meter swim. Obviously, you could just have your kettlebells and stuff by, so the accessibility of it, even deadly doesn't climb. So you have to do a climbing wall, or you have to do some obstacle in between each of the labours. So it's very, very versatile, which is where all sort of my thought has gone into, is how can I make a fitness race that is hard, but it's also one of the most versatile training methodologies there is.
So do you have one of these already scheduled? Like you have it in the works already, or you're still planning it out?
No, so but I'm writing the training manual currently, because I'm going to publish a manual for it. But I've booked in. So the first one is June 2024, so next year. Um, so the 22nd of June, it's at the local athletics track near me. Because
Hmm.
another thing that I wanted to do was increase the sort of use. So tracks get used for like athletics, but like when you go to an athletics track, they're like one of the most awesome venues you could go to. You go to it and you're like, this is an incredible facility, and it cost me like £55 an hour, so like $60 an hour to rent it. So whereas if I was to rent some massive venue the size of an athletics track, it cost thousands, for a big event.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's cost me a few $100s to go rent this huge facility that's got a clubhouse, speaker, everything. Um, so I'm renting the track for next year. The most expensive thing to me to organise is actually the timing, guys. I'm sure with the triathlon, you pay a lot of money, don't you, to enter a triathlon?
Yeah,
But
it's very expensive.
when you think about the admin, so these chips each chip that I'm putting on an athlete is £600 in technology, each individual chip. So
Hmm.
we'll have timing mats. So when they cross the mat, it records a timing, so they get the time for the 400. Then when they go to do the labour, which is like a farmer's carry or a goblet squat or a push press, it gets the time for that, because the plates, track the timing, and it's expensive. Um, so it's costing me a few £1,000s, um, but hopefully we get the ticket sales. So the tickets are going online next week. It's all booked in with the track, and the next stage is just marketing. Really, I've got a big online following for my SCC, but that's more international. Realistically, what's gonna drive this event is the local audience. So luckily, I've got a gym in the town, but I'm under no illusion it's not easy to get something big. So hopefully I've got 10 months. Hopefully we can sell a good amount of tickets, and then from there you'll see whether it's got legs. There's athletics tracks all across the UK, and the idea from them is potentially to go, right. Let's either franchise it out, or we can run these events. We can have people run them, and at different tracks. If we can get 200 to 300 people signing up per race, then we can replicate it across the UK, and then replicate it. There's athletics tracks, hundreds of athletics tracks in every. I wouldn't even like to say how many there are in every state across the USA. And
Hmm.
they're not being utilised as much as they should be. And not everyone gets into athletics, obviously. What else are you using athletics tracks for? Well, they're perfect for fitness racing, which to me is going to be one of the fastest growing sports in the world, especially when it gets recognised, as a sport. People know what it is. If I say to the average person in the street, oh, I'm into fitness racing, they'd be like, well, what's that? Maybe know about CrossFit, but CrossFit's very niche when you think about what CrossFitters do. Like a lot of Olympic weightlifting and a lot of gymnastic movements.
Yeah, I think that would be a very kind of easy sport to replicate. Like you just like you say, you just need a track, or really just like an open field. Really, a track
Yeah,
obviously would be your best bet. But yeah, you're right with tracks being underutilized, especially here in the U.S. Or in my area at least. Track and field is it's really not that popular. I mean, every school has a track and field and stuff, but I wouldn't say it's pretty popular compared to the main sports here, like American football, baseball, basketball. Those would be like more of your main sports. But yeah, that's
yeah,
tracks could definitely be used more, and that would be a good thing that you could use them. So when it comes to, you said you call them the labors in between each run. Do you have a set like workout you're going to do for each one? Will
yeah,
it be the same every single race, or will you change it
yeah.
up depending on the race?
So this is where, actually, when I first seen races like the High Rocks. So I always assumed when you have a fitness race, it changes every time.
Mm-hmm.
And I seen races like the High Rocks that don't. And I was like, well, why are people going to go and do the same thing? Right? Is that not boring? And then I realized that when I started training for these races, I was like, you train specifically for them races. So like it's like saying, why would someone run a 5K again, or why would someone do a triathlon again? You know what I mean? It's like because you're training for that event. And actually, in my opinion, changing the activities ruins it because you get exercise, you're like, that's naff, or like, I've not. So you want to train specifically for the event. So my event is the 400. So you start off with 400, then you do farmer's carry. And it all works off a dozenal system because everything's so it's 240 meters. So the stations jump between a movement station where you cover a distance. It's a 30-meter lane in between the track, in the grassy area in the middle, and then it goes like 30-meter lane stationary. It's like goblet squat stationary, farmers carries movement, right? So you do a 400-meter farmers carry, you do another 400-meter, and then it's dumbbell snatch, 400-meter. So yeah, let me get the full order. So I've got it all there. Yeah, so it's 400-meter farmers carry, another 400, so it's 400 each time. I won't keep saying it. You got
Mm-hmm.
the kettlebell deadlift, dumbbell lunge, dumbbell snatch, burpee broad jump, goblet squat, plate front carry, so kind of plate to the front, however you like, push press, bear crawl, plate clean and press, overhead carry, and then devil press, where you do a burpee and then press the weights overhead. So the weights are the same for everyone, male weights, female weights. The heaviest weight that you deadlift is 32 kilo kettlebell. Farmer's carry is 24 kilo for the men, 16 for the women. Goblet squat is 20 for the men, 16 for the women. When you look at, say, the push press, it's only 12.5 for the men, 6 for the women. So it's all relatively lightweight, but it's done for 60 reps, and you're
Mm-hmm.
running a 400-meter in between. So this race, the fastest people are going to be around 40 minutes, and then the slower people are going to be like an hour 10, an hour 20. So it's around an hour race, 50 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes. That's the duration of the race. Because of the short distances and the sort of the weight exercises that are relatively light compared to say CrossFit, it's going to be incredibly intense. So I've run through it like 20 times now. I've had dozens of people run through it. We tested it and tested it and tested it to get the right order of the exercises to make sure it all made sense. And what it does is it works the sort of 6 fundamental patterns that we have, which is, you hinge, you squat, you lunge, you pushing movements, your pulling movements. So it's got everything within it. So I think it's a total training system. You're going to get crazy fit and you're going to work every muscle in your body. So it's working all the key fundamental movements that the human body performs, and it's loading them for higher reps. The injury risk is low. Um, and the progressions that we've seen in my gym, so I run a strength conditioning gym, work with the general public, work with athletes as well. And we've got numerous general folk that are doing deadly dozen training. And we've also got athletes like ultra athletes and people that are strong women and stuff like that. And everyone's fitness has gone. And these are people that have been training a long time. So it's not novice gains. It's not like a newbie doing fitness where you get all them progression because they're already really unfit. These are some of the brilliant athletes that are like saying, I'm hitting PBs in a variety of sports. And I think it's a training system that has been missed. I think running followed by bouts of exercise that last 2 to 4 minutes, doing things like, light sled pushes or rowing, but also doing farmer's carry, walking lunges, stuff like that, that within the strength and conditioning field sort of lost a bit of favour because they saw it as sort of like old school circuit training. But increasing the duration, holding people at that sort of VO2 max where they're just about to go into their anaerobic system. So that they're breathing hard, they're working hard, but they're still primarily aerobic. So they're able to recover and keep going whilst working the muscles intensely. Um, it hits you hard initially, but it gets you crazy fit. And now when I come to do like the normal circuits where it's like working for 30 seconds or a minute, I'm like, it's easy. It's like
Yeah.
barely worth doing, even though obviously you work harder. And everyone said the same thing. So my Goldilocks zone is not working for 30 seconds, not working, 20 seconds is the Tabata, isn't it? not working for 30, not working for 40. My Goldilocks zone is 2 to 4 minutes working of either running or like normally with the Deadly Dozen stations, we do like we superset or we tricep different exercises. So it might be like 10 goblet squat, 10 push press, 10 burpee broad jump, and you do that for 4 minutes, but as fast as you can. Then you go running, and then you come back and you're on the rower for 2 to 4 minutes, and then you go running for 2 to 4 minutes, right? And you have like only 15 to 20 seconds, but you keep yourself at that aerobic sort of fresh, that anaerobic threshold, so at the top of your aerobic system, and it works, and it gets you crazy fit, and injury rates are really low, other than overuse. But like for me, it's been a game changer, and I've trained in a lot of ways, and I've trained a lot of decent level athletes, and to me, this has got me in. I was an army physical training instructor, but I can honestly say, 15, 15 years older, 20 kilos heavier, and I've never felt better. And I was running and marching and doing all sorts of S&C in the military. I was a combat athlete as a kid, not at any great level, but this has done the best by far. Strength training I love, and I will always supplement some level of barbell stuff. But in all honesty, when I was weightlifting and powerlifting, I had more niggles and injuries. Strength training does reduce your risk of injury, but when you throw yourself into strength programs sometimes, like I found I had to be more wary of overuse injuries like elbows and knees and stuff, doing weightlifting than I do doing this. And running's another one that you have to be careful of overuse, but fundamentally, never felt better.
Yeah, I think that's a very unique idea. You might be onto something there. So I'm gonna keep my
Yeah.
eyes out for these races coming to the U.S. here soon. Hopefully, yeah, I like that. You mentioned one of the labors was a back roll. When you say a back roll, do you just mean like
Bear
a straight
crawl,
up
sorry.
a what?
Bear crawl. Like
Oh,
crawling.
back. Oh, okay. I thought you
Yeah,
said
yeah.
back roll, and I
No,
was
no,
like,
no.
man, they're gonna be dizzy doing back rolls and
Yeah.
then getting up and running. Okay,
No,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
So the key to it was I wanted three different carries. So farmers, front carry like a baby carry, overhead carry. So I'm like, that's three fundamental ways like carries, right? I wanted a squat, I wanted a deadlift, I wanted a single leg movement, so a lunge. I wanted a pressing movement, i.e. the push press. I wanted a clean and press type movement, taking something from the floor to overhead. I wanted something that involved getting to the floor, getting up and jumping, so a jump movement. So that's the burpee broad jump. The snatch is like a single arm movement, so taking a weight from the floor to overhead. So it's all about, I don't always like to use the term functional because anything's functional. If you're getting stronger, it's functional because being stronger is functional. But it's definitely about working everything in that sort of total body approach. So if you were to do nothing but Deadly Dozen, like it would be a complete training system. You're not missing anything out. Your chest is being worked, your shoulders are being worked, your back's being worked, your cardiovascular system's being worked. You're not just doing, these sort of very static strength movements. There's loaded carries that are performed in different ways. You're doing crawling, which is great for like your wrists and your elbows, and um, so I wanted to create something that was all round, something that's very easy to replicate. Kettlebells, plates, and dumbbells are very hard to break. They're very easy to transport. Um, you're not having to take, rowing machines or any sort of specialist equipment. So, you could train for the event with just a pair of kettlebells because you could adapt the kettlebells into doing for dumbbells for push press. You can clean and press a single kettlebell. So you can do the whole event with just kettlebells. And the devil press is just to finish because it's a horrific exercise. Um, and I've actually got, the logo is quite cool. It's a skull kettlebell, and we're actually having that turned into a medal. But rather than it being a conventional medal, it's actually like a steel pendant that you can wear. So it's got a steel chain and then a kettlebell skull. So I wanted to go quite dark with the logo. One thing that I was quite dubious about because I was worried it was going to be cliche is we sort of, because of it was Deadly Dozen and 12, and it was like the 12 labors of Hercules. We sort of took like a stoic approach because I'm a big believer in stoicism. I think it's a great thing for young men especially. To just take an educated approach towards your problems, not bottling things up, but taking an educated approach. Looking at your problems and sorting them out in a way that's beneficial for you and the people around you. and just being stoic as a whole. So I wanted to include that within the sort of the brand ethos. Um, so that ties into ancient Greek and Roman. So what we did, we have like pantheon workouts, like labors are called, which are linked to each Greek god, like Zeus and Hera and stuff like that. Um, and we, the reason I did that, not to be cliches, was to just add a little bit of gamification. You know, ranking systems where you can try and get certain badges, certain patches within. We call them pantheon patches, where you know you're at a certain level, and then you've got like your hero workouts, demigod workouts, god workouts, and it's just a way of making it a little bit more fun and not too serious, and it's all color coded. And that was important for me because I'm a massive advocate of like don't be too serious with it. It wants to be fun as well. It's like one of the most definitely one of the hardest fitness races in the world, but I also want it to be fun. And I want people to sort of, you know, also get a little bit of the stoicism from it, you know, because I just thought it was cool that it linked to the 12 labors of Hercules, and it was just like, you know what, I'm going to roll with this, and hopefully it just makes it a little bit more enjoyable. Even the training system, because of my background in strength conditioning, I've got a lot of normative data. I collect a lot of data when people do stuff. So, you know, what is a good time for each labor? What is a good time for a 400-meter run? You know, I've got a testing battery specifically designed to test the physical attributes that someone needs, sort of like a 6-minute mass test, testing their maximum aerobic speed. I've got all the data on what's good and what's average and what's not. But rather than sort of having poor, good, very good, I've got a 12 rank system. So I've just based everything off 12. So I've tried to create a model that's new, it's novel, it's fun, and it touches on both the physical aspect and also the mental aspect, which we just tap into a bit of stoicism. At the end of the day, fitness racing requires mental and physical discipline. You have to be strong mentally and physically. Um, so we're sort of leaning into that sort of brand ethos, really.
Yeah, I like the whole how you mentioned the Greek, the different gods and stuff because to me that's like a branding thing. So that's pretty
Mm,
unique too because you can build off of that and you can people can use it to kind of compare their fitness levels. Like they may one of them say I'm
yeah.
at this level and the other person well I'm better than you I'm at this level. So then it makes it competitive and they can kind of compete with each other that way. So I think that's a good like branding thing too. To with the Greek gods and stuff. That's pretty cool. I like that idea. So what kind of inspired you to come up with this? Like where did you even get this idea from and and what kind of brought it to fruition for you?
So basically, I think I'm quite lucky that I would see myself as from the writing. I think naturally I'm a little bit creative. I like coming up with sort of ideas for workouts and programs, and I've always enjoyed that. You know, so I've written hundreds of strength programs, and I used to quite enjoy changing up. Right, this is just squat, or this program doesn't involve the squat, or it doesn't involve this. And I always liked being quite creative with that, and I like things making sense. I'm always quite pedantic about um, you know, the way things are ordered, like what is the ideal exercise order and stuff like that. Um, so the main inspiration was me going from being sort of putting on a lot of weight in lockdown, which I was strong, but I was also drinking quite a lot of beer. Um, but I sort of stopped getting the buzz, and I think a big part of it was um, basically I was barbell training, strength training, but I wasn't getting any buzz. My whole childhood I did like hard physical training, from combat sports. And I joined the military, did that, and then I wanted to get big, and I put all the emphasis on strength training, which I still love. You know, that's my bread and butter, teaching strength training stuff, and it's awesome. But then someone asked me to do um, the high rocks with them, so I said, yeah, I'll do it with you. I'll start training. So I started my own sort of training, which was very much around fitness racing. And I was just like, oh my days, this is what was missing. I need to get my heart rate up. I often say, don't judge how you feel till you've got your heart rate up. You know, if you've had an argument with your partner and you're really stressed, if you get your heart rate above 80% of your max heart rate, you don't care anymore. Like you're just like, oh, why was he even arguing? You get your heart rate. You know, I think if you've got any problem, go get your heart rate up and you'll feel better about it. Might not solve the problem, but you'll feel better about it. And so that was like I was like, wow, like this is what I've been missing. I've done training my whole life, but I was like, wow, this is what I've been missing is training hard for these long durations that I used to do when I did a lot more boxing and stuff. But I like the fact it had weights in there. I like the fact that it was running into rowing. It was so varied. And then I was like, you know, I'd like to create something like this, but I want to do it in a way that's complete, that's better. And then that's where I started thinking about, right, what is the crux of everything that I've sort of done over the last, my military career as a physical training instructor, owning my own strength and conditioning gym, writing all these books. Like, what are the lessons that I've learned, and what are the key physical attributes? So that's, that inspiration was, like I said, was 12 times 400 was a grueling track session that we used to do, and it developed your 5K time. And your 5K time is just, to me, it's a massive indicator of someone that's just really physically and mentally strong. So I was like, yeah, 12 of them. And then I was like, what's a cool name for that? I was like, Deadly Dozen. People sometimes call it Dirty Dozen. It's not the Dirty Dozen, it's a Deadly Dozen.
Mhm.
And then I was like, well, there's no chance in hell that that's not been used for something in fitness. And then it hadn't. It's like a video game, I think. So I was like, I'm going to go for it. And then I seen this logo on Shutterstock, stock images. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I was like, yeah, but I can't use it. It's a stock image. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna email the guy from like Finland that did that image, and I'm going to say, how much will it cost for you to make me an image like that? Because it was so cool. And I was like, this guy's going to charge me like a fortune. And to be fair, he did really. He charged me. It was quite expensive, but the logo is really cool, and everyone's like, that's epic. So I was like, right, I need 12 exercise stations. But because I've written a strength book, which is about fundamental movements, like how do we develop squat, lunge, push. So I was like, right, I want it to be plates, kettlebells, and dumbbells, like the most accessible equipment that every
Mhm.
gym has. So you want to do a high rocks race or something else, you don't have a rower, you don't have a ski erg, you don't have a sled. A lot of gyms don't have sleds, more and more do now. So it's an awesome race. It's one of my favorite races, high rocks. But I was like, I want it to be accessible for everyone, even if you're in a garage, you know. And so I was like, right, let's pick 12 movements. And I was like, I want 3 different carries. I want. So I just spent quite a few weeks actually just writing down all these exercises and just thinking what. And I just tried it and tried it and tried it and tried it. And was like, what feels the best? And I got loads of people to just run through the entire race. And I was like, how did that feel? How did that weight feel? Men, women of all different ages, different shapes, sizes, different abilities. And I just trialed it and trialed it and trialed it till we got to a point where I'm like, that's, in my mind, that's perfect. And then it was like, obviously early on, it was, like I said, it was the 12 stations, and it's a little bit like almost like numerology. It's like you start getting 12 in everything. You start making 12 into everything. So it was the 12 labors and Hercules. I've always been into Stoicism, so I think the ancient Greeks were a lot of the modern sort of wisdom that you get these days and philosophy, and all these podcasts that are all about sort of like self-help and stuff. Half of it's just recycled Stoicism. You read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius and Socrates and Seneca and all these people, and they were all just. It's amazing how relative it is. There's aspects to it that's not relative because these were ancient Greeks. It's a different time, but as a whole, it's like I think it's by far the best sort of education for especially young men to just enhance their lives. You don't have to live by it strictly, but it's just having that understanding, that emotional intelligence. Like, why am I feeling this way? What is this problem? How can I improve it in a way that's not just sulking about it? It's not just hiding it away. It's taking it on. So I was like, I really want to put that. All of my books so far have just been manuals, and it's like, this is how you squat, this is how you deadlift. I was like, in this book, I want a little bit more personality. It's going to talk about this is how you do the lunge, but it's also I'm going to put the sort of ethoses that I have. This is my race, and like I said, I was worried about it being cliche with Greek gods and stuff like that, or someone going, that's a bit nerdy. But then I was like, well, I am a bit nerdy. I like books. I'm obsessed with Tolkien. It's like, who cares? Like, it is nerdy, the Greek god things and the mythology, and you've got all these Pantheon labors, and you've got like Medusa workout, and you've got like Hades, which is the idea is you go to hell and back. It's like a horrific workout. And I just thought, I'm going to rate this race mine, and I want it to be complete. And that was the sort of ethos. And for the last 6 months, I've just been planning it and planning it. But I think my biggest strength that I've succeeded with so far was naive optimism. So I'm just a little bit naive. I think things are going to go well. So I've just dove in head first, take the leap and grow your wings on the way down. And that's what has helped me to just go, right, I'm booking the track. And people are like, what? Like, yeah, I'm booking the track, right? I'm paying for these timing guys, speaking to a company to make the medal, How much is all this going to cost? And I'm like, oh well, it'll work. And that's not confidence. That's naive optimism. It's just gun ho, and I think that helps me. So that's what's allowed me to just book it and just go for it, and that helps a lot. You just go for it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Worrying about it's not gonna help when it doesn't work. You may as well just think that it's going to be the biggest thing in the world, because if it isn't, you've not really lost out. It's the same old, isn't it?
You got to have delusional optimism. That's what I like to
Yeah,
say.
exactly.
Delusional
Yeah,
optimism. Most people are going to think you're crazy, but deep down inside, you know that you know what you're going to do is successful as long as you stick to it. You believe in yourself, and that's all that matters, and it'll all work out for you in the end. But yeah, I think the race is a very unique idea. I like it a lot. And honestly, you ever had one over here, I definitely would sign up to do one. Like I would do it right now without even training for it.
yeah,
But I like to challenge myself like that. Um, so yeah, I definitely think you're onto something. It's a great idea. I hope everything works out for you. I feel like you're gonna have a great turnout for the race. I mean, you got plenty of time to prepare. So
yeah.
so good luck to you and with all the with the new race. I think it'd be a good idea.
Yeah, hopefully, like I say, and the beauty is, I think, because you're training for a triathlon, I don't think, even though I do think you've got to train specifically for stuff, but someone that's fit can come across and do it. And they might go, oh,
Mhm.
my days, I really struggled with, like, the 60 dumbbell snatches, or I really struggled with the burpee broad jumps because I've never really done them before. But if that's what I like about conventional fitness, right? If you have not been a CrossFitter, you couldn't just rock up a CrossFit competition, because as soon as there's like ring muscle ups, you're just like, well, I can't do a muscle up. Whereas a gymnast, that's how they just start their routine. It's easy. So it's all like, specifics. But it's the deadly dozen race. If you're like a super fit guy, like you can rock up and do it. You might not beat the people that are well trained specifically for it, but you can do it. And I think that's important. You might find it like that's the hardest thing I've ever done, because I've not trained to that level of muscular endurance on weighted activities in between running. Everything's specificity, but you could just rock up and do it. And I think that's actually a strength. I think that's a good thing, that people can come from other sports and stuff and do it. It doesn't need, like, one of the things that's so hard about triathlon is that you've got to get, it's not just like running a marathon. You've got to run like a marathon, but you've got to do, the Ironman. You've got to be a good swimmer. Like, I've never really got into swim, because I always just saw it as like, if you when you get tired, you drown. And I don't like getting changed after I've been wet. You know what I mean? I find it really annoying. But it's a triathlon's like, it's such a huge commitment. That's why I've got so much. I mean, one of
Mhm.
the guys in my gym that's doing the fitness races, he's done like a few Ironman, and it's such a commitment to train for. Which is a good thing, because it gives you so much focus. But I also like the fact that with this race, is like you could go, I'm going to throw in a deadly dozen without dedicating too much of your life to it. You
Mhm.
just have to be super fit.
Yeah, that's the low entry to barrier is huge. That's where I think you kind of hit the market perfect because you're gonna get athletes, you're gonna get well trained people that's been working out for years, and you're also gonna get the beginners. Some people that don't even work out.
Yeah,
It's kind of like how the Spartan races were and the Tough Mudders. I feel like a lot of people that wasn't necessarily into fitness kind of did those because they were fun, like they were something different, and they could do them as a team. Like you could do a relay race type deal. So it kind of had a lower barrier to entry. So I think that's going to be where one of your advantages when it comes to the deadly
yeah.
dozen.
And you find the with like a note on that is, a lot of people think that, like, there's like we're saying about a small sort of niche, but this sort of fitness niche is growing. And what I realized when I left the military was, like, average is no longer average. I was amazed at how many people that just normal folk were running like triathlons and tough mudders, and I was like, these are all like hobbyist athletes, but we started calling them professional amateurs, because they're like amateurs, are like hobbyists that train like professional amateurs. And the amount of people in the military, they used to say civvies are all useless and they're lazy, right? And then when I left the military, I was like, yeah, like a lot of them are, but like a big portion of them are not. Like, and they're paying to do this fitness. When I used to run the fitness sessions in the military, them guys had to turn up. Whereas when I run fitness sessions in Civvy Street, as we call it, they pay you to do it. So it's like the people that I'm surrounded with in my gym, very average people, some of them. But I don't mean that in a negative way. I just think what you'd see as a normal person walking down the street, they're not an athlete. but they are doing like crazy stuff. Like they're running ultra marathons and stuff all the time, and like signing up for triathlons. And I'm like, people think, oh, people don't like working hard. I'm like, no, like a lot of people don't, but actually, there's a huge portion of people that want to be absolutely beasted, and they want to work up to do an Ironman, and they want to swim, a long distance, and they want to work hard. So we have like a solo race, pairs race, and a relay race. And relay is great for people that only, you only do like a quarter of the race yourself. It's just split between the four. But people as a whole, even average people that aren't that fit, they like working hard. It's just, yeah, I think the media portrays that you've got all these people that just don't like it and everything needs to be fluffy and made easy. And I'm like, no, bullshit. Like, people like working hard. You just got to surround yourself by the right people.
Yeah, I definitely think fitness is on the rise for sure. I definitely
Mm.
myself have seen a lot more people are starting to take it more serious. And I think that comes with a lot of people are scared. Like a lot of people are, there's so many things that cause cancer nowadays.
Yeah,
There's so many overweight people nowadays. So you're here in the States for sure, we're definitely seeing fitness is on the rise. Like a lot more people are starting to take their health and fitness more serious. And you see gyms are like packed nowadays. Like you go
mm,
at rush hour to the gym. I mean, you can barely work out in a lot of these gyms around here, which is I can't say it's always been that way, but
no,
yeah, I definitely see fitness is on the rise for sure, and I think that's a good thing for everybody, especially for people like us that are in this industry. I think it's going to be good for us, and honestly, I love
yeah,
to see it. I like to see more and more people get into fitness and start living those healthier lifestyles, just to not only look better, but also just to feel better. Like they're just feel better inside mentally. That's kind of the whole reason I started this podcast. I just want to help as many people as I can get into fitness as possible because fitness in my life has changed the way that I do my everyday activities. So I want to inspire other people to do the same and try to get healthier and live a better feeling life too. So that's kind of the whole idea
yeah.
behind all the social media stuff that I like to post.
Yeah, it's commendable. I really respect that. It's like we were saying earlier about podcasts. You asked me if I did a podcast and whatnot, and I think, I think if you're gonna do it, do it well. Because I think I'm a bit all or nothing and go for it. Although I want to feature on a lot of podcasts, and I do, um, I don't think that I would put the time that a podcast deserves, and that's why I don't. I stay in my lane. I thought about it. I get a lot of people say you should do a podcast. I probably talk too much to run my own podcast, um, and so that's it really. I don't think I'm the right person to run a podcast, and I think it's commendable when people do run podcasts and they run them well, because it's very easy for a guy to go, you know what, I want a podcast, because they like the idea of having a podcast. And I always say, do you like the idea of something, or do you actually want to do it? Do you want the process of doing it? People say, I want to play the guitar. I want to play the guitar. It's like, do you like the idea of playing a guitar, or do you want to practice guitar every day? Like, which is it? Because if you don't want to play it every day, then forget about it. So I like the idea of having a podcast with thousands of people are watching, but I want to make podcasts every day. So it's commendable when people do it well, and it seems like you've got a really good setup, you know.
Yeah,
So that's great.
I've been doing the podcast about a little over a year now. I'm not gonna lie, when I first started, I did it for a while, and then I kind of fell off there for a minute. But then I made it. It was like my New Year's resolution for this year. I was like, I'm gonna do one podcast a week, every week, and just be consistent with it. And so far,
Mm.
I've done that, and I've been doing good with it. And so I got back. I kind of enjoy the process again now of doing it all, and I really like it. So and now we're here interviewing people. This is only the second interview I've ever done on the podcast. I interviewed a guy that owns the local supplement store in the city that I live in. So the podcast is leading to opportunities for me to network with others like you in this
Mm.
instance. So it's been good for me, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from it. So I enjoy it, and hopefully I'm spreading the word. I'm getting it out there for people to kind of learn something, motivate them a little bit, inspire them to start their own fitness journey. So it's been positive so far, and it's only up from here.
No, that's commendable, and it's like I say, it's if you have a positive impact in just a few people, then it's huge. Because they do say that fitness is it's not just physical but mental, and I think that's there's more people in my gym that do it. If you really got to the bones of it, they do it because it makes them feel better, and they need it for their
Hmm.
physical. Not we're not talking about mental health issues, just people's mental health, it's a common misconception. People believe that when you say mental health, you think, oh, what's the problem? But everyone's got mental health, haven't they? You say you've got physical health, you've also got mental health. And the way in which you maintain your physical health is with physical training, but it's also one of the ways in which you maintain your mental health. And all the evidence backs that. So it's a huge part of it. So if you inspire someone to train more and it improves their sort of their overall welfare and their overall status in life, then that's a huge thing. So it's a hugely positive thing, and that's why I think it's commendable to when you've got people that are running podcasts and running well and staying consistent, because consistency, like everything, is the key, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. I always say if every podcast can, if only one person can take something from every one of my podcasts or from a post that I make online, then it was a successful post for me. So that's what it's kind of like the motto that I live by. So
Yeah, no, good on you.
well, all right, we're kind of running kind of long here, so we'll probably call it here. Unless I'm gonna give you the chance. If there's any questions that you want to ask me, feel free to go ahead and ask me. If not, I will give you the chance to plug all your social medias, your website, your new race, all those kind of things. So I'm gonna let you have it for now.
Yeah, I'd say when is your triathlon?
My triathlon is November 4th. It is in Panama City, Florida.
Oh wow! And just one question really. So why triathlon? Why triathlon?
It's kind of the same situation you were in. A friend of mine did one, and he talked me into running or doing like a smaller one in our local area. Uh, and I was just like, fine, like I'll do it, whatever. Like I'm pretty fit. I could probably do it. So I started training for it. I trained for a few months, and I did that one. And I liked it, so I was like, I got to do the next step. Like I got to do something bigger. Got to do something better. So I just went ahead and signed up for the Ironman, and I've been
Wow,
training ever since. So I started training for the shorter one in January, and that race was in May. And then right after that, like the week after that race, I signed up for the Ironman. It's in November. So I've been training since May for the Ironman. I'm about 2 or 3 months in now, 3 months in. So I'm
wow.
doing pretty good. I've made a lot of progress since that race in May. So I'm feeling pretty confident about it. Like at first, my goal was just to finish, but now I know, like I know I can finish now. Now I'm trying to. I got like a time. My
Get a good
goal is to
time.
do it. My goal is to do it in 14 hours. That's my goal.
Wow, yeah, good. And are you going to get the tattoo?
Uh, I don't know about the tattoo. I not if I just do one. I probably would have to do multiple before I got the tattoo.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is.
nice. Well, good luck. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a debate that people have in the Ironman world. If most people say if you just do one, you shouldn't really get the tattoo, but
All
I don't
right. I
know.
thought if you did one, that's fine. All
Well,
right.
yeah,
I
like yeah, some people agree
I
you
heard
can.
like a debate with half, like a half Ironman, like people getting a tattoo, and I'm like, well,
Oh
do you not
no,
just get half?
no, you can't get half. You got to do the full one. You can't do the half.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've heard that debate. We've got a guy that's actually swimming the English Channel, he's meant to be doing it now sometime. So between England and France, so it's like a 34K swim.
Wow.
Just over 20 miles, and he was saying, oh, people swim it in relays, and I'm like, well, they've not swam it. It's like me saying I've run a marathon in a relay. Well, you've not run a marathon, have you? You've got to say that you've done it in a relay, but a lot of them seem to portray it like I've swum the channel. Yeah, but with four other people, So I'm like, no, no, that doesn't count.
Mm-mm.
You've not swum the channel. You've like swum part of it. I could say I've swum part of it for jumping in the sea. But yeah, no, I agree with that. But no, no, that's everything. Like I say, really good luck to you. Like I say, man, it's no easy feat. It's not something I would do, mainly because I'm not really into cycling. I'm not really into swimming. That's
Yeah,
that's the crux of it.
I wasn't either. I have never done either three. Like I never swam, bike, or run before I started training for this. I
Oh
mean, I had
wow, good
run a
on
little
you.
bit. I've ran a little bit in the past, but not like actually running distance. Like I think the furthest I'd ever run in the past was like 3 miles. Now 3 miles is a warm up now for me. So
Yeah,
I don't have no background in any. I played sports growing up. I played baseball and football growing up. So never had any like endurance training background. So this is all new to me. I've had to learn it all. I've completely changed up my workout routine. Like I'm training 7 days a week right now. So it's pretty intense. I'm not even lifting weights. If I lift weights at all, I'm doing it once a week now. So
yeah,
my
yeah.
my training has completely did a 180, and I'm doing completely different. But I know that's part of the process, so like it's okay for me. I know once the
Yeah,
Ironman's over, I'll probably go back to training in the gym. Honestly, I don't know how
yeah,
much.
yeah,
I probably won't do any Ironman training specifically, but I definitely want to keep running in my routine. So like before, I wasn't
yeah,
doing much cardio at all because I've always been on the skinnier side and I've always wanted to like build on size. So I've never done a lot of cardio. But now that I've done all this training, I think I'll definitely keep the running in my regular training routine because I've kind of found a little like a love for running. Like I like it now. Now that I can get
yeah.
out there and run longer distances, run 10 miles, run 12 miles, 15 miles at a time, like I've kind of grown to like it a little bit more. Now the swimming, heck no, I do not like the swimming.
No, it
You
wouldn't.
won't
It's
you
not for
won't
me.
catch me in the pool after this training at all.
No,
I'm
no,
not
it's
good
not
at
for
the
me.
swimming. It's tough. I
No,
have a
that'd be
lot
my
of
advice. Though.
Yeah, I got a lot of respect for swimmers now. Like I never knew how hard it was to actually swim for distance. It's very hard. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
respect there for.
And it's sacrifice swimming. If my kids said they wanted to become swimmers, I'd be dubious. I'd let them do whatever they want to do in that respect, but I'd
Mhm.
be dubious because I know how much swimmers have to sacrifice. You know, they're getting up at the crack of dawn to swim for a couple of hours. There's not a lot of us, high school sort of sports that sort of require as much as swimming sometimes.
Mhm.
With how early they have to get up to do it. So yeah, it's definitely not for me. But yeah, touching on that, if someone were to say, people always ask me like, what's the optimal rep range, and do it all. But I would definitely say to anyone if that's listening that what would if my advice for training is do both. Do strength training and do cardio because you'll feel so
Mhm.
much healthier and you'll feel so much better. Yeah, try to put on muscle, but try to get your cardiorespiratory system like on par with your strength, if not better. You want both. It's people always say, "What's the key? What's the better?" It's like be strong, fast, and fit. Like be all three, be hybrid. Yeah, you can lean into your strengths, but if someone's more obviously if you've got a real bias, then go for it. If you're a powerlifter, but I do think if you're just more of a general person, like it's a bit of a beginners podcast and stuff like that, then do all of it. Don't just sort of pigeonhole yourself. You'll feel so much better if you train in a more varied way.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I always say like there's so many different styles of working out and different styles of cardio. So I've always preached like try all of them, try them all out,
Yeah,
give them a chance, see if you like them. If you don't like them, hey, you don't have to do them. There's a different way you can do cardio. You can run, you can ride a bike, you can row, you can swim. There's
yeah,
so many different ways. Find what you like and just stick with that if it works for you.
yeah.
That's
And
what
the
I always
fitness
like to
racing is
say.
just a mix of all of it, basically. That's what
Yeah.
I like so much. I mean, I was a good runner. I was cross country in the army and stuff like that because I was majorly skinny. And but I actually found that when I was running like 10k, 10 mile, whatever it may be, I was like, okay, I like this, and I'm quite good at it. Um, but I like running like a kilometer and then rowing a kilometer and then running a kilometer and then doing a farmer's carry and then doing some goblet squats and then running again. I like going in and out of the gym, so I run to the gym, I run out the gym, I run around the park, I then come back in the gym and I'm doing, you know, um, wall balls, or I'm doing like sort of like a plate carry or a clean and press with a plate, and that's what works for me. I like that. I run for 5 or 10 minutes, but then I want to be rowing. I want to be doing something different, but still with that same sort of metabolic rate. My heart rate's going. That's what works for me.
Yeah. It's all about finding what you like to do and what you enjoy. Because most people they see things online and then they go try to replicate that and they don't like it. Like they're like, nah, this ain't for me, and then they quit. They
Mm,
stop working out because they think that's the only way to do it. But
yeah, and
there's
my
so many different ways you can go about fitness.
And my advice for that as well, though, is like they often say, if you don't enjoy running, you're running too fast. And it's what people do is don't, when you do, like, this is advice for, say, fitness racing or for cardio, is don't put yourself in the hurt locker. Like, so let the fitness carry you. As your fitness improves, let it carry you. So, like I talked about, there's an anaerobic threshold where when you cross it, you're going anaerobic, you're producing waste products, you can't fully recover from that state. You want to work at the low end of the aerobic fitness actually to build a lot of endurance. And then also as you start
Hmm.
pushing up, you start increasing that threshold, you're pushing it further away. So that's what we call aerobic power. So the ability to work harder while still being primarily aerobic. So aerobic basically all that does is it just fully oxidize all these chemical reactions that are going on, producing energy oxygen's utilized during that, and therefore you're not getting the waste products and you're not fatiguing, so you're able to go for a lot longer. So my advice is when you start incorporating like exercise, like just go at a rate that's just steady, and then lit as your fitness grows, just roll with it. Roll with the fitness and you'll start to ramp up. What people do is they go too hard initially, they get themselves in a hurt locker, they hate it, and then they don't go back, they burn themselves out. Whereas if you go nice and steady, even less than what you should be doing or could be doing, not should be doing, and then you just keep doing that and you're consistent, and then your fitness starts going, and then you naturally start running fast because it felt too easy. So you run a little bit faster. It's like with weight training as well. Rather than trying to overlift, you just lift weights till they feel too easy that you think these are naff. Go a little bit heavier. And actually, that's where you'll see the longer term progression. Most of the time, if people don't like the cardio, the fitness side, they're going too hard. Slow it down, let the fitness snowball. Because as you get fitter, you'll be more motivated to push harder. And then every now and again, when you go for a run, you go, oh, I feel like, I'm just going to jog. I'm just not feeling up to it. Fine. But other times you'll get warmed up and you go, this is too slow, I'm going to run harder. And you'll get to the point where you start running harder than what you're meant to be running, because you're meant to be doing a slow run, but you're running harder because you feel great. And that's my advice. Allow yourself to get to that point where you have to be disciplined to actually slow yourself down because you want to go harder, because you've allowed your fitness to get to that point. And that initial bit is where people go too hard, and especially people that used to be very fit and have lost it because they hold
Mhm.
themselves to the previous level. And that's just a recipe for disaster. I used to run a 5K in this time, and then they go out running, they start sprinting, and then they burn out, and it really demotivates them.
Yeah, for sure. I like what you said. Train until it feels too easy. I've never thought of it like that way, but that's a good way to put it. Like if you're training and you're like, man, this is way too light, then that's a
Yeah,
good thing. And obviously you're making progress, and that's the whole goal. So that's a pretty
yeah,
good way to look at it. I never really thought of it like that before, but
yeah.
I like
Play
how
the
you
long
put it.
game.
Yeah, and that's what people don't understand. Fitness is nothing about fitness is quick. It's all the long game. Like you're not just gonna get to your goals in a year. It's gonna take you probably 10 years to get to where you want to be. I've been working out about 10 years now. So, and I'm still nowhere where I want to be. So that's what they try to rush it. They expect too much too soon.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, if that's all the questions that you got for me, we can go ahead and wrap it up. I want to give you the chance to plug all your social medias, your website, your books, your training program, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So basically, my Instagram is Strength Conditioning Course, which is quite a long name, but that was the courses company. Where I run courses. You can find me on Instagram. My name on there is just Jason Curtis. If you search Jason Curtis on Amazon, you'll find my books. I've also got my website, my personal website, which is jasoncurtis.org. And then I've got obviously deadlydozen.co.uk. So I've got strengthconditioningcourse.com, which is my courses and my books. jasoncurtis.org is just my website, and then deadlydozen.co.uk. That's also on Instagram as deadlydozen. If anyone wants to get me on Facebook, I see social media as just, me coaching and me, I'm not sort of private on there at all. So if someone wants to add me on Facebook, it's just Jason Curtis, and then they find any of my content through there. And although, I am quite busy, I'm more than happy to give people advice. I do best not to mess me on Insta because I get hundreds a day, so I just miss them.
Hmm.
But if you message me on Facebook or anything with genuine questions, then I'll usually get back to people if someone emails me. So feel free to drop me a message because I like to think I'm quite helpful. Even though I'm busy, it might take me a little bit to get back to you, or I might miss messages because my Instagram gets bombarded. But other than that, like, I'm always happy to help.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Good luck to you in your race, the Daily Dozen. That sounds awesome. I hope everything works out for you, and it's successful. And hopefully, we'll be seeing one here in the U.S. here soon. That's the goal. So yeah, if you're listening, you need a coach, online coach. You need a training program. Check this man out. Go to his website. He sells his books on Amazon. So if you're a hands-on person and you want to read the book, check out the book. Follow him on his Instagram. So yeah, thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see y'all on the next episode. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you.